Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me introduce myself and my fellow author. My name is Alida Kiss. I am an Assistant Research Fellow at University of Debrecen. My fellow author is József Ambrus, Counselor, Assistant Professor at National University of Public Service. During the next 8-10 minutes, I'd like to talk about our new research topic, which is the scientific research difficulties of post-earthquake rehabilitations. In this slide, you can see the main contents of this presentation. I would like to begin by summarize our research topic. The estimated damage values of the recent earthquakes in Croatia highlighted that in addition to the process of rehabilitation in Hungary, it would be worthwhile to examine the neighboring countries. Linked to the idea of bench learning proposed by my PhD work, which is the author see justified in continuing to study the practice of neighboring countries, in this case Croatia, leaving open the opportunity to promote mutual learning. I like to drawing your attention to the destruction in Croatia caused by the recent earthquakes, because these events started our new and current research topic. On the 22nd of March 2020, Zagreb was hit by a strong earthquake of the magnitude of 5.5. At the time, Zagreb was the hub of the COVID pandemic in the country. The earthquake had 1 death, 26 injured, and thousands of people were displaced. When the country barely recovered from the damages caused by this earthquake, another earthquake occurred near the Zagreb region. An earthquake of 6.2 magnitude, with the epicenter close to Petrinja on the 29th of December 2020. 8 people were killed and at least 36 persons were injured. In overall, the Croatian government is currently facing a multi-phased emergency caused by the global pandemic, an economic recession, and the earthquakes of 2020. Now, I'd like to talk about the main difficulties which we have to face during post-disaster recoveries and about the opportunities offered by bench learning. In order to recover from a disaster, leaders need to make different decisions. However, what makes the post-disaster decisions making peculiar is the lack of time to make the optional decision. The recovery of the local economy depends on the restoration of the infrastructure, housing, and public services, which need a lot of time and resources. So, what is bench learning and why is it so important? The use of benchmarking as a horizontal management tool is becoming more and more valuable nowadays. But bench learning is gaining more and more prominence than classical benchmarking, because here we prioritize learning from others. The point is to learn from the strengths of others, collect ideas, review them, and avoid bad practices. As you can see on the figure, bench learning can be considered as a circle process, as a learning process as well. Next, we come to our methods. A secondary research, literature review, and report content analysis were implemented with a focus on the characteristics of post-disaster rehabilitations and bench learning opportunities connected to Zagreb's recent earthquakes. Searches were run on Google, ResearchGate, Elsevier Science Direct, and EM databases. So, why is this topic being so actual and become more and more important nowadays? The Zagreb epicenter area is the most active one in the continental part of Croatia. The return period of a magnitude 6 earthquake is expected to be 150 years, but now it happened that the March earthquake followed by the December earthquake, also nearby the Zagreb region. So, an increasing number of rapidly growing urban areas are becoming more vulnerable to seismic risk in their development process. The fact that a strong earthquake would not only cause damages to the built environment and the population, but would also result in the collapse of the country's economy while increasing one of Croatia's biggest problems, which is depopulation. Now, I'd like to talk about the mean number of Zagreb's earthquake connected to damages and losses and the recovery needs. First of all, I'd like to highlight that our data and features related to rehabilitation following the Zagreb earthquake, based on the Croatia Earthquake Rapid Damage and Needs Assessment 2020, prepared by the Government of Croatia and the World Bank. Most of the damage was suffered by the housing sector, followed by the culture and cultural heritage sector, including historical government buildings, education, health, and business. The sector most affected by total losses is the housing sector, followed by business, health, culture, and cultural heritage, and education. Overall, 78% of the damage and losses are in the private sector and 22% in the public sector. The total recovery and rehabilitation needs are considerably higher than the estimated damage and losses for all sectors. So, what are our options to improve our practice and implementation starting from a huge and complex reconstruction project? We considered as a good option learning from each other's good practices. The difficulties of adapting international best practices in Hungary may be due to the fact that Hungary has different characteristics in many areas compared to countries appearing in international research and publications, which are much more often affected by natural disasters. It is probably easier to identify what and how we can learn from each other if we implement it in a similar system. We formulate as a fundamental problem that international cooperation needs to be strengthened not only from the point of view of assistance, but also from the point of view of scientific experts. After all, in the absence of publications and reports in foreign languages, there is no common language for mapping and adopting best practices. As a final point, I'd like to talk about our main conclusion. One of the clear lessons of the paper is that the management of large-scale emergencies requires a more flexible response system on the part of the EU. Mutual European solidarity must be strengthened for the future with regard to rehabilitation. As a continuous of research, it is possible to develop exact parameters, map rehabilitation practices along them, and share them on a common international platform for the organizations and governments concerned in order to learn from and adopt the strengths of the others. Here you can see our references, and now I'd like to thank you for your attention. I hope you find this topic interesting and useful. Me and my fellow author would be happy to answer any questions you may have. You can contact us via email, which you can find on the second slide.